All right, so part of your warm-up is your whole warm-up is to read this scientific article and answer the 5 questions about it at the end. For those of you that prefer to listen rather than read it yourself, I am going to go ahead and read this out loud to you on this video so that you can listen to it and follow along. We are reading this article firstly so you can get used to reading scientific articles and the types of language that they use. I know they can be long and difficult to get through sometimes, but we will do it together. And also because we will be doing a similar experiment in one of our next few classes here, where we measure fish stress levels as water temperature changes. So this is going to help prepare us for that, and you will be writing your own experiment review after that. So we will get started with the abstract here. Imagine you are rushing home and need to breathe harder and harder, but there's less oxygen in the air around you. This is the situation most marine fish are facing with warmer ocean temperatures due to climate change. They breathe the same oxygen we do, except that they have to get it out of the water, which is a much harder task. Warmer water holds less oxygen than cold water. To make matters worse, fish also need more oxygen in warmer waters. So with the higher demand and the lower supply of oxygen, the growth of the fish's gills, their breathing organs, cannot keep up. This is causing ocean fish species to grow to smaller sizes. We created a model that can predict how much fish are shrinking and also developed a theory called GOLT that explains what is going on. Introduction. Our current lifestyles are changing the living conditions for a lot of creatures on Earth, including ourselves. Human-caused climate change is raising average global temperatures both on land and in the oceans. We have already seen a lot of changes in ocean life as a consequence. For instance, a lot of marine fish move away from warmer waters. They shift their distribution. We have also seen fish species growing to smaller sizes over time. Could this also be happening because of climate change? And what would be the specific reason? Before we can address these questions, we need to understand what changing temperatures do to ocean environments in general. One major thing is that they change the oxygen content in the water. Warmer water holds less oxygen. Is that a big deal? Most likely so. All fish need oxygen, just like we do. They just have to get it from the water with help from their special organs called gills. And you can see a picture of that in figure 1 here. We suspected that the lower oxygen levels are making it harder for fish to breathe. At the same time, fish need more oxygen in warmer water because the warm water speeds up their metabolism. So what if fish could not get enough oxygen? Could this potentially shrink them? We created a mathematical model and also looked at some empirical or real-world data to find out. Methods. We examined what impact climate change in the oceans, specifically changing water temperatures and oxygen levels, will have on the growth, abundance, and distribution of fish. In our first study in 2013, we calculated the effects on over 600 marine fish species. In the years that followed, we refined our theory and adjusted our models to get even more accurate results. We also compared our calculated shrinking rates with the actual measurements of changes in fish sizes over the years. The shrinkage is difficult to demonstrate because fishing also affects the size of the fish we measure, since fishermen catch the big ones. So the two effects are difficult to quantify separately. Previous studies focused primarily on what changing ocean temperatures will do to marine life. We chose to include the declining oxygen content in our analysis because it's a major factor for fish survival and growth. Results. Climate models show that if we don't reduce greenhouse gas emissions drastically, water temperatures in all the oceans will rise, and water oxygen levels will go down. Our first calculations predicted that this would cause most marine fish species to shrink by 14 to 24% in body weight between the years of 2000 and 2050. The shrinking will be most dramatic in tropical regions, which already have a higher water temperature and lower oxygen levels. Our calculations also show that marine fish will likely move towards the poles by tens or even 100 kilometers every 10 years to escape the warmer waters. Scientists and fishers have already observed such a poleward shift in distribution. Our most recent calculations show that the shrinking will actually be worse than we anticipated a few years back. Now, we have calculated that the body size of fish will shrink even more, by 20 to 30% for every 1 degree Celsius increase in water temperature. This is quite a lot. And the more active the fish species, the more it will shrink on average. Discussion. Our model predicts drastic decreases in the average size of ocean fish species due to changing ocean temperatures and the oxygen content caused by global climate change. We have already observed that some fish are shrinking, and not just in the oceans, but also in freshwater lakes and rivers. We identified the limitations in the growth of fish gills as the main factor that reduces the size of fish when less oxygen is available. Gills grow much slower than the rest of a fish's body, so they cannot make up for the increased oxygen demand of fish in warmer water. Some researchers have questioned these growth limitations of gills. They argue that gills can just grow bigger to meet the higher oxygen demand. However, all our research and calculations indicate the opposite is true. The growth of fish is limited by the slower growth of their gills and the resulting insufficient oxygen supply. They simply cannot meet the higher oxygen demand of bigger bodies in warmer waters with lower oxygen content due to the limitations of surface area growth of their gills. Our gill oxygen limitation theory, GOLT for short, not only accurately describes empirical observations of changes in fish sizes due to warming waters, but also helps to explain a lot of other features of fish biology. We still don't know what kind of impact all this fish shrinking will have overall on marine life and the ecology of the oceans, but it is likely that such big changes in fish size will impact everything from fisheries to marine food webs, predator-prey relationships, the age when fish lay eggs, and much more. And unfortunately, climate change is not the only big environmental stress factor for ocean creatures. All the pollution and overfishing that is happening already will only make things worse for shrinking fish. Right now we're on this little green box here that's going to talk about surface area. This is an important physical concept for animal growth. The bigger the animal, the smaller its surface area relative to the volume of its body, and vice versa. Smaller animals have more surface area relative to their body volume compared to bigger animals. You can understand this better if you simplify the animal to look like a cube, like in the picture. The volume of a cube increases exponentially by the third power, but the surface area only by the second power. So as cubes or animals get bigger, their volume increases faster than their surface area. In fish gills, the surface area is super important because that is the area where oxygen is extracted from the water. Smaller fish have a bigger surface area, and so do their gills, than bigger fish relative to their body weight. Thus, if the cubes were fish breathing through their 6 faces, the cells of the large cube fish would have a much worse oxygen supply than the small cube fish. So in order to increase their gills' relative surface area, fish have to grow to a smaller body size to get enough oxygen. Conclusion. Sometimes researchers disagree, but that's actually really good. It means that we have more thorough research discussion as well as more research to start with that might allow us to approach questions from different angles. Do you ever disagree with your friends about the things that you see as facts? Try to understand where they are coming from, and maybe you can find common ground. We do agree, however, that there are still a lot of unanswered questions in regards to how climate change is going to impact all of us, including fish. But it's clear that there will be big changes, so we'd better try to reduce our impact on the climate. Do you have any ideas what you can do? Look at some other science journals for kids' papers for inspirations. All right, then there's a little bit of a glossary here, so if you didn't understand some of the terms, you can look them up right here. And then these are the questions you need to answer. These 5 check for understanding questions. You're probably going to need to go back and look through the reading to answer some of these. And make sure you submit them on Canvas. Thank you.